Hello everyone, welcome to World History Explored. Today we are delving into the rich history of El Salvador. Many different Mesoamerican ethnic groups, including the People, Lenca, and Maya, are prominent in El Salvador's early history. Early in the 16th century, the Viceroyalty of New Spain, headed by Mexico City, was formed after the country was taken over by the Spanish Empire. Within the First Mexican Empire, El Salvador gained independence from Spain in 1821. But 2 years later, it broke away again to become a component of the Federal Republic of Central America. Following its independence in 1841, El Salvador maintained its sovereignty until joining Honduras and Nicaragua to establish the Greater Republic of Central America, a short-lived union that lasted from 1895 to 1898. Before we go on, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Let's get started. Pre-Columbian history. Before the Spanish conquest, the region now known as El Salvador was made up of several principalities and free indigenous states. The indigenous inhabitants of central El Salvador were known as the Pipils or Pipils, a long-established nomadic Nakua tribe that fiercely resisted Spanish attempts to expand their dominion southward. A Mayan group known as the Chorti occupied and ruled the northern zone of the Lempa River, while the Lenca people inhabited and governed the eastern territory. Their neighbors, the Aztecs and the Maya, shared a similar culture. Several 1,400-year-old archaeological sites have been found intact under 6 meters, 20 feet, of volcanic ash. These ancient civilizations left behind a rich cultural legacy, including pyramids, ceramics, and intricate carvings, providing a glimpse into their sophisticated societies and way of life. Spanish Conquest 1524 to 1525. After Pedro de Alvarado was forced to retire in the Battle of Acajutla in 1524 by Pipil troops headed by King Ablacal and Prince Adenal, the first Spanish attempt to take possession of El Señorío of Cuscatlan was unsuccessful. When he returned in 1525, he was able to establish control, and the Audiencia of Mexico became responsible for the district. The Spanish conquest introduced European diseases such as smallpox, to which the indigenous population had no immunity, leading to significant depopulation. The imposition of Spanish rule also brought about forced labor systems like encomienda, where indigenous people were exploited for agricultural and mining work. Spanish Colonial Period 1525 to 1821. The area was incorporated into the Guatemalan Captaincy General following the conquest by the Spanish. Until his death in 1541, Pedro de Alvarado served as the first governor. The region was ruled by a short-lived Real Audiencia of Panama from 1538 to 1543. Following this, the majority of Central America was governed by a new Real Audiencia of Guatemala. The territory was split up into the provinces of Izalcos, San Miguel, and San Salvador at this time. San Salvador province attained the status of Alcaldía Mayor, Great Mayor's Office, in 1579. It became an intendancy in 1786 and a province with a provincial council in 1821. The Federal Republic of Central America's state of Salvador was formed in 1824 by the Union of San Salvador and Sonsonet. Struggle for independence, 1821 to 1841. Revolts throughout Spanish America began in the early 19th century as a result of Napoleon's annexation of Spain. Those who fought for independence did all of their fighting in what is now central Mexico, in the heart of New Spain, between 1810 and 1821. All of New Spain's territories, including the intendancies of the former Captaincy General of Guatemala, received news of the independence once the viceroy was overthrown in Mexico City in 1821. The 1821 Central American Act of Independence served as the vehicle for the public declaration. Following the country's independence, the new Spanish Parliament aimed to create a commonwealth under which Ferdinand VI, the King of Spain, would also hold the title of Emperor of New Spain. On May 19, 1822, Parliament declared Agustin de Iturbide the Emperor of New Spain, renaming it the Mexican Empire. The continental intendancies and provinces of New Spain proper, including the previous Captaincy General of Guatemala, were included in the Mexican Empire's domain. In 1832, in Santiago Nanualco, a small village in La Paz province, Anastasio Aquino led an indigenous uprising against criollos and mestizos. Because they were mistreated so frequently and had so little land to farm, the indigenous people were unhappy. Over the history of El Salvador, numerous political disputes have arisen from the issue of land allocation. El Salvador was acknowledged as an independent republic on February 18, 1841, following the dissolution of the FRCA in February 1841. Rise of the oligarchy. El Salvador's economy at the beginning of the 1800s was reliant on the exportation of just one commodity, indigo. This attracted wealthy landowners to some areas while abandoning other areas, particularly those near past volcanic eruptions, to the impoverished and indigenous people for subsistence cultivation. Synthetic chemical dyes took the role of natural indigo in the late 1800s. Coffee, a newly in-demand commodity, took the place of this crop by the landed elite. The coffee boom led to significant economic growth and the concentration of land in the hands of a few wealthy families. The late 19th century saw the emergence of an oligarchy fueled by the coffee business, which has dominated El Salvador's money and land ever since. El Salvador saw a number of dictatorships rule the country from 1931 until the early 1980s. However, these regimes were oligarchy-dominated, with some officials earning modest wealth from bureaucratic corruption. The oligarchy at the time was made up of about 20 families who controlled sugar mills, banks, television, newspapers, and over 70% of El Salvador's coffee exports and production. After the war ended in 1992, El Salvador's oligarchic families turned their attention from exporting agricultural products to making investments in money. Military dictatorships, 1931 to 1979. The coup of General Maximiliano Hernández Martínez occurred in 1931, and his removal from office occurred in 1944. During this time, rural resistance was brutally suppressed. The most famous incident occurred in 1932 when Farabundo Martí, Chief Feliciano Alma of the Izalco tribe, and Chief Francisco Chico Sanchez of Juayua, an Izalco subdivision, led the rebellion of the Salvadoran peasants. Days of protest were followed by the government's reprisal, known as La Matanza, or the slaughter. The Matanza resulted in the murder, imprisonment, or exile of 10,000 to 40,000 native people and political opponents. This period saw the consolidation of military power, often backed by the oligarchy, which maintained strict control over the country's political and economic systems. Salvadoran Civil War, 1979 to 1992. The reform-minded revolutionary government junta came to power in 1979. The political extremes on the far right and far left clashed with the new administration, which led to a rise in political violence that quickly turned into a civil war. The El Mozote massacre in December 1981 is the most well-known example of the repression and indiscriminate executions carried out by the Armed Forces of El Salvador, ESAF, who were at first ill-trained. The guerrillas, now known as the Farabundo Martí National Liberation Front, FMLN, were backed by Cuba and other communist regimes, while the United States backed the government. When the war ended in 1992 with the Chapultepec Peace Accords, the FMLN rose to prominence as a political party. The constitution was changed in conformity with the peace agreements, making it illegal for the military to be involved in internal security operations unless there are exceptional circumstances. For the most part, the peace process saw the demobilization of Salvadoran military units go as planned. The military intelligence activities were turned over to civilian supervision, and the Treasury Police, National Guard, and National Police were abolished. The military reduced its number of personnel from a peak of 63,000 during the war to the 32,000 mandated by the peace agreements by 1993, 9 months ahead of schedule. Less than 15,000 people, comprising both uniformed and non-uniformed troops, made up the ESAF by 1999. As recommended by the Ad Hoc Commission, a purge of military officers accused of corruption and violations of human rights was carried out and concluded in 1993. Post-war period, 1992 to 2019. The FMLN ran as a political party in the 1994 presidential contest. The candidate from Arena, Armando Calderon Sol, emerged victorious. Neoliberal initiatives, such as the privatization of multiple sizable state-run businesses, were put into place by Calderon Sol when he was in power. After winning San Salvador's mayoralty in the 1997 legislative and municipal elections, the FMLN came out stronger. On the other hand, the party's reputation suffered due to internal conflicts during the presidential candidate selection process. Francisco Flores Perez, the candidate of Arena, was elected president once more on March 7, 1999. Arena secured its third consecutive term in power on March 21, 2004, when Antonio Saca emerged successful in the presidential election. El Salvador's first female vice president was elected in the same election as economist Ana Vilma de Escobar. The election results also signaled the demise of the minor parties PCN, PDC, and CD, as they fell short of the 3% electoral law minimum needed to be registered as parties. Former journalist and FNLN candidate Mauricio Funes won the presidency in the 2009 elections. In El Salvador's history, this marked the first victory for a leftist political party. On June 1, 2009, Funes was inaugurated as president with Salvador Sánchez Cerén as vice president. After winning the election as the left-wing FMLN candidate, Cerén assumed the presidency in 2014. Cerén is the first former rebel to be elected president. He led guerrillas during the Civil War. El Salvador became the first nation in the world to outlaw metal mining on its soil due to concerns for the environment and public health under his direction. Corrupt presidents. After being accused of money laundering and unlawful enrichment, former President Mauricio Funes fled to Nicaragua in 2014. Funes and one of his kids were found to have unlawfully enriched themselves by a court in El Salvador in 2017. As of 2019, Funes remained a resident of Nicaragua. In 2023, Funes was also given a 14-year prison sentence in absentia due to agreements over the gang truces he brokered when he was president. In addition to receiving a 6-year term for tax evasion, the U.S. State Department also imposed sanctions on him. Former President Antonio Saca admitted to stealing more than $300 million in public funds and giving them to his personal companies and outside parties in 2018. As a result, he was given a 10-year prison sentence. The U.S. State Department censured former President Salvador Sánchez Cerén in 2023 for significant corruption by laundering money while he served as vice president. 2019 present. El Salvador's next president, Nayib Bukele, is a millennial who ran against both of the main parties that had controlled the nation since the Civil War and was elected in February 2019. El Salvador's homicide rate has decreased by up to 60% since Bukele took office as president in June 2019. According to a research published by the International Crisis Group, ICG, in 2020. This phenomenon may have something to do with the unofficial agreement not to attack that exists between Samaras and the government. Benevolent to Bukele, El Salvador accepted Bitcoin as legal tender in 2021. At that point, its worth was $52,000 USD. El Salvador was advised by the International Monetary Fund, IMF, to rescind its intention to recognize Bitcoin as legal cash in January 2022. El Salvador was facing financial challenges as a result of the sharp decline in the value of Bitcoin. At the foot of an El Salvadorian volcano, President Bukele had declared his intention to construct a Bitcoin city. Bitcoin's value increased to nearly $64,700 in March 2024, surpassing its previous peak value. The Salvadoran government launched a major offensive against criminal organizations and violence associated with them in 2022. A state of emergency was announced on March 27. On July 20, it was extended. The number of suspected gang members arrested exceeded 53,000. As a result, there have been notable drops in gang-related crimes such as extortion and murder. The homicide rate decreased by about 70% from 2022 to 2024, with 495 homicides in 2022 compared to 154 in 2023, according to a January 2024 announcement. President Nayib Bukele won re-election on February 4, 2024, garnering 83% of the vote in the general election. He gained 58 of the 60 seats in the El Salvadorian parliament for his party, Nuevas Ideas, New Ideas. President Nayib Bukele took the oath of office for a second 5-year term on June 1, 2024. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Thanks for watching.